Hello and welcome to another edition of the Blood Red Bulletin. My name is Emmet, and today I'm joined by my Liverpool.com colleague Dave Comerford. So, Dave, the season is now over, and we're getting into that time of the year where the transfer rumours go through the roof, speculation. Liverpool will be linked with a million different players over the course of the next couple of months. And most of it you can kind of take with a grain of salt. It's most of them will not happen. But one player who has been repeatedly linked with the move to Liverpool on and off over the last maybe year is Jude Bellingham. And it seems that Liverpool are perhaps going to put all their eggs in the Bellingham basket, but he will not arrive this summer. Maybe more with a notion towards next summer when his contract expires in 2023. What do you think of Bellingham, and what do you think of the rumours? Do you think that Liverpool will hold off for a year on signing a midfielder, or do you think it's an area that they should address this summer?
Well, to be fair, there's some kind of conflicting noises about it. You see some reports, and it's like Liverpool are willing to wait, understandably, given the caliber of talent and the caliber of player we're talking about here. And then you see reports that say no, they definitely will be looking to strengthen the midfield this summer. So yeah, there's some kind of different noises about it. Personally, I think that it's important to address it this summer. Just because you get the sense that it kind of needs that fresh blood. I think in there. It's not that what we have now is stale really, but the key components of the midfield, like Henderson and Thiago, are kind of getting on a little bit. And it'd be good to start laying the groundwork for the future. And also there's an argument to be made that is Henderson better operating as a number six and kind of rotating with Fabinho and then bringing in someone in that right hand side position, and who knows as well, we could definitely lose a couple of our midfield options. Milner hasn't signed a new contract yet. By the sounds of it, he's kind of contemplating whether he wants to go somewhere else and play more, or whether he's going to kind of stick with his situation at Liverpool. And then Oxlade-Chamberlain as well is probably the big one, who'll no doubt be thinking about his future. So yeah, from that point of view, we might need to bring someone in just simply for depth reasons. And Liverpool have made really big purchases when they felt like it's something that's going to set them up for a lot of success. They've kind of broken away from their usual, the bracket they usually buy players in to buy, players like Alisson and Van Dijk. And I think we could potentially see that again here. What I wonder is there a case to be made? And this is one of those things that is far easier said than done. Obviously, I accept that, but do you try at least to get a deal agreed? If not, officially in principle this summer, ahead of next summer. So, you make an agreement with Dortmund to sign him next year, or you have the agreement with the player sealed already. That'd be what I'd like to see Liverpool do if they are going to wait until 2023 to do it. Just because I think that you can't afford to rest on your laurels in this case. There's going to be so much competition. Every top side is going to want him, essentially. So you'd like to see Liverpool try and get the jump. And maybe in the case of someone like Jadon Sancho, it was similar where we did want him, but we were pipped in there by Man United. So hopefully we don't let it kind of get out of our control this time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one in the sense that I think Liverpool should sign a midfielder this summer, because I feel when Fabinho is unavailable, Liverpool aren't the same side. Henderson can fill in the role, but he doesn't have the same characteristics, or he can't interpret the role in the way Fabinho does. So, but the problem is Fabinho only really maybe misses 6, 7, 8 games a year. But I do feel like Liverpool need someone in that Fabinho mould to come in when he is not available. And I don't know if they should wait another year. Um, but yeah, that's another story for another time. But yeah, I think, as you say, it should be a case of perhaps Liverpool getting an agreement with Dortmund, or B, with the player, and then maybe perhaps trying bringing in a low cost option, maybe just to plug a gap for a year, and then Bellingham will come in a year's time. But another player who's been linked again, another one who's been linked on and off all this season. If you were a keen observer of transfer rumors, is Ousmane Dembele. I was going to say of Barcelona, but only of Barcelona for the next 3 weeks. His contract is expiring now at the end of this month, and Liverpool have been linked with a free transfer. Do you think Dembele is someone worth investing, not money in terms of a transfer fee, but in wages? Because his wages at Barcelona are very, very high. Like, do you think Dembele is worth taking a punt on? In terms of, he would obviously command a hefty enough salary. Do you think he's worth it, considering his injury track record?
Well, I mean, you mentioned being linked with him all year. I think really it certainly feels like it's been multiple years of this rumor popping up, and you never know really how true it is. Just the fact that it's always popping up mean that there is something to it. But it's a tricky one because, you mentioned the wage thing. I think, he is on massive wages at Barcelona. Barcelona invested so much money in him, not only with the transfer fee, but, with that package. There's a danger when a player's up for a free transfer that, people would assume on the outside that financially it's actually a really good opportunity. But if he's got the likes of PSG who've been linked with him and Chelsea in that kind of market for him as well, then what you effectively could have is a bit of a wage auction. And I don't see Liverpool maybe getting to the heights of those two teams. We know obviously from the Salah example just how committed Liverpool are to their wage structure. So from that point of view, I'd be a bit skeptical about it. And, the thing with Dembele is, like, the general narrative around him seems to be he has a lot of ability and a lot of talent. I was just looking at his stats before we came on this morning. And I think he got like 13 assists last season in La Liga, which was the most, even though he only played 1,400 minutes. So we're dealing with a player who, when he's on form and when he's actually fit, is really, really dangerous and, a top tier talent. But again, the question is he actually going to be available? And I think you might say that the free transfer aspect of it would mitigate the risk. But when you've had that amount of salary commitment and a player who's injured so much, and one other thing to mention actually is well-documented attitude issues as well that have cropped up during his time at Barcelona. I think it would be seen ultimately as too big a risk, however good a player he might be.
Yeah, and I mean, his injury track record is horrendous. I mean, he makes Naby Keita look bulletproof, because I think he's only played like 150 games for Barcelona in 5 years, and not many of them have actually been from the start. And his if you go onto transfer market and look at his injury track, it's horrendous. So I mean, you have to take that into consideration too. Could he stay fit a whole season? Could you rely on him? But as you said, there is a player there. It's just whether he would come to Liverpool, and if Jurgen Klopp could actually get extracted out of him the player that most expected him to be. And at the same time, he's only 25, although he seems to have been around forever, Dembele. But again, he's still only in his mid-20s, so there is hope that he can kind of kick on and become the player that many thought he would be. But moving on to a player that actually does play for Liverpool now, Joe Gomez. He didn't have the best of seasons. Obviously, he was fourth choice behind Virgil van Dijk, Ibrahima Konate, and Joel Matip. And he, again, has been linked on and off all season with a move away with a view of making Gareth Southgate's squad for the 2022 World Cup. What do you think Gomez should do? It's almost like, do you stick or twist? Do you stay with a team that's successful but you're not really playing, or go to a lower team where you're not really going to win anything but you play week in, week out? So what do you think of the whole Gomez dilemma?
I think that last thing you said was really interesting because obviously we know that footballers want to play, but I think one thing that gets underestimated when these things are talked about is maybe even if you're not playing every week, just being in this environment, working under a coach like Klopp, having the opportunity to participate in squads that win these trophies. I think that's appealing as well because, like you mentioned, he could go, say he went somewhere like Aston Villa and, he could be competing for top half, maybe gets into the Europa League occasionally. But in terms of his career and his trophy haul and things like that, is that how much more appealing is that really? So from my point of view, I kind of hope that he would be swayed by the incentives of Liverpool, because I've still got a lot of faith in him, given the performances he's kind of produced over the years. So I'm hoping he stays and realise that there could be a long-term opening there as sort of Van Dijk's partner, because I think if we get Gomez back to his best, then I don't really see a better kind of young centre back that we could bring in, or at least that it would make sense to bring in to play alongside. So hopefully he can look long term with it. But I definitely understand if he wants to go. I think the fact that Liverpool are looking at bringing in a young right back, Calvin Ramsey, I think makes it obviously life more difficult for him, because if he would then become the backup right back, then that's a further source of minutes that will get cut off.
Yeah.
So that's difficult as well. But I think the World Cup thing is big because he didn't really get the chance in 2018. He's getting to the stage where if he misses this World Cup, he's going to kind of be in his late 20s or nearly by the next time the World Cup rolls around. So, it is a big factor, I'd say. So you could understand if he wants to leave, if he thinks that there's going to be more of the same next season. He's only going to get a few starts here and there in the big competitions. I'm hoping that he stays, and I'm hoping that Liverpool's efforts to convince him, because it seems like they've made it a bit of a priority. Hopefully that makes him feel valued and that he will sign the contract.
Yeah, I think the Gomez situation is going to be very interesting to see whether he stays or goes this summer. And as you say, if Liverpool sign Calvin Ramsey, the majority of Gomez's minutes this season did come as a right back, and I don't think that there was actually too many that came from him playing in his natural position. So if Ramsey arrives, you do think, where is Gomez actually going to play next season? So it'll be interesting to see what he does over the coming months. But that'll wrap us up for today. Thanks very much, Dave, for joining me. And be sure to check out Liverpool.com for all the latest written info, and Blood Red for visual content. And we'll see you next time.